Hey everyone, and welcome to the You vs. Mind podcast. My name is Jack Leake, and I am super excited that out of all the podcasts you had to choose from, you chose this one, and you won't regret it. Here on You vs. Mind, we dive into the heart of the mental battle and provide you with effective strategies to fight, face-to-face, the things like stress and anxiety that plague us all, as well as looking into the root of the issue and digging up testimonies and stories from people and their bout with these trials. It is time to escape the lies we tell ourselves and take back what is ours. And my job is to make sure you don't do it alone. Are you ready? So Isabelle, thank you for joining me. I'm super excited to have you here on You vs. Mind, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and excited to talk about mental health today.
Yeah, as we're going to dive in, as you saw in the title, physical health, both of what we put into our bodies and how it impacts our mental health, as well as what we do as a person every day and some different routines that can help our mental health. And not everybody realizes how big of an impact those physical things have on the mental health, but we're going to dive into that. Mainly you, Isabelle, as you're kind of a nutrition enthusiast, as you kind of labeled yourself prior to us sitting down and putting the headsets on. But you went to pharmacy school. Just a little bit of a background on you, Isabelle, at Cedarville University, correct?
Yep.
In Ohio, a private Christian college there in Ohio. And you also worked at a local pharmacy here around town for how many years?
I've been there, or I'm not currently there now, but I worked there for 4 years. Started when I was 15 and did a lot of kind of just the ins and outs of the pharmacy job, helping the techs and the pharmacists get what they needed to get completed done. So yeah, it was definitely a cool experience. I thought that's what I wanted to do in school. Like you said, I went to pharmacy school for a year. That did not turn out to be what I wanted to be, but I learned a lot, and that kind of launched my passion for health and nutrition moving forward. So,
and just one last thing that you're really involved with, again, all this, just kind of explaining why I have you as a guest, Isabelle, because you're extremely knowledgeable on all the stuff we're going to cover, and very reliable as well. But you're involved with I'll let you walk through it, but a company, if you will, Arbonne is what it's called. Tell us a little bit about Arbonne.
Yeah, so it's basically a company that's all plant-based nutrition, vegan, so soy, dairy, gluten-free, all that kind of stuff in their makeup, in their food. And that's just something that I've been a part of for just a few months now. Again, on my health journey of figuring out what it truly means to live a healthy life. Kind of the slogan I'm going by right now is healthy mind, healthy body, healthy soul. And what does it look like to have those things, those aspects in life? And so that's kind of where I've been at with that. So it's a really cool company, and I've really enjoyed using the products, and it's really helped me on my journey as well. So yeah, that's just something else that I've been a part of, and again, opened more doors for research and figuring out what it truly looks like to be healthy.
And you've even convinced me. It didn't take much convincing. It's pretty good stuff, tasty stuff, and effective stuff that Arbonne provides, but you got me going on a 30-day detox, which we can talk about what detox is and different things later on. But yeah, Arbonne's definitely cool. And so, Isabelle, thanks again for joining us, and we'll dive into our first topic here in a moment. So why, Isabelle? Why? Why is physical health so important for one's mental health? Why are they connected?
And there is a lot of specific science behind all of this, because that's a really great question. Mental health is so closely tied to physical health that a lot of times we don't realize it, especially your gut. If you can take care of your gut and have it be balanced correctly by eating the right foods, working out, those different things, which we hear that all the time, but it's true. And there's something that is just so important to having that. So your gut connects all aspects, not necessarily even just your mental health, but it provides just the rest of the body flourishes on depending on if your gut is healthy or not. And so that's a huge thing in and of itself. But even just with eating right and different things, like certain foods have, higher glycemic indexes, which means it spikes your blood sugar, or there's different foods that have different food dyes or artificial flavorings. I mean, a lot of those processed foods that we hear, oh, those are bad for you, they truly do. They're very inflammatory. And when that gets into your system, into your body, and when you start to digest it, it slows down your metabolic processes. It affects different organs in certain ways. And so it really slows the body down. And essentially, that's pulling power from your brain, causing your brain to be more sluggish, not necessarily firing all of its neurons correctly. And so when that happens, it in turn affects your mental well-being. And so that's something that, again, taking care of your mental health is super important from the side of counseling, going to see a therapist, different things like that, medication, et cetera, et cetera. But it's important to also look at it from a natural, healthy perspective, because that's just a huge aspect then of itself to start as a foundation.
And that's the first thing. I never would have thought of any of this. I eat my box of whales every evening.
Yeah.
I have ice cream twice a week. I eat all these different things without even thinking about it. But the first meeting I went to with my counselor, one of the first things we covered was, how much do you sleep? What do you eat? And what vitamins do you take, or do you take vitamins? Those are one of the first three things that she brought up to me and asked me. And I was like, whoa. It's like,
yeah, you don't expect to get asked that going into a counseling session.
Yeah, and so it really abruptly brought all this to my attention. And I was like, okay, I have to have Isabelle on for a podcast episode to cover all this, because I wasn't aware of it. I know a lot of people aren't either. But you talked about a lot of the things that we're told are bad for you. And they are, but even things that we're not told are bad for us, things that maybe we're not told they're good for us, but we're not told anything. We just assume it's okay to eat, like those whales that I eat, or maybe ice cream twice a week, or like Yoplait yogurt. I love Yoplait yogurt. Not good for you. None of this stuff, and you can tell us why in a minute, but we're not told anything about what we eat or what is promoted. Like commercials for food on TV, hardly any of that is good for you, even if it's promoted as a healthy product. You have to look past the facade of what we're being told. So maybe just tell us, just think of, all you listeners, maybe a normal snack or snacks, your favorite snacks that you like to eat, any of those things. Tell us why typically most of those things are not good for you, even though they're promoted as, it's okay.
Yeah, so let me kind of give you all a history lesson real quick, because a lot of times, like when I go into the grocery store, I think, wow, there's so much here to eat. And yeah, there is, but a lot of it is manufactured foods. And what that means is some of the foods that are created might be taken at first from a natural source, but along the way, certain items are mechanically processed or broken down or made in a certain way that causes, it's just not natural foods that are made for the body. And so our body over the decades have kind of adapted to that in a way, but it still is to the point where it's causing, that's why we see the highest heart issues in America. That's why we see the highest cancer ratings in America, because we have so much processed food. And this came about from kind of the post-World War II era, where there was a lot of the food shortages and things. And so companies were like, well, we need, there was a lot more fresh food than we see today. And a lot of companies were like, oh, we need to make a profit. We need to, feed people.
It's all about money, too.
And so there was a lot of, it was just, then you saw the industrial boom of food. And so that's where we see all of these processed ingredients. And it's important because we are educated on it, and part of it is the concept of money, and sugar has been designed to be addictive, and you have all these different chemicals that go into food, because when our body eats something that tastes good, it triggers the dopamine receptors in our brain, and our brain goes, oh, this tastes good, I want to eat this again. And so whether or not we consciously realize it, we go back to that, your box of whales, or you go back to your Swiss cake rolls, or you go back to the different things because you're trained to do so. And so that's just kind of where we've come over the past 50, 60 years. And we didn't even realize it was happening until now. We see, there is a huge kind of push to, be healthy, go back to this. But a lot of times we don't know how to do that, because you're right, we're not educated and we don't know how to read labels. And that's, I think the biggest thing is do research. Don't be afraid to do research yourself. That's kind of how I got started into it, is I realized not everything that's going into the foods is good for me. I'm not being told it's bad, but it's not beneficial for me. And so that's where I began the researching process of okay, I need to avoid high fructose corn syrup. I need to avoid monosodium glutamate. I need to avoid certain food food dyes and food colorings in food because they're not good for me. They're triggering bad responses in the body. Like, for example, red 40 is a food dye that's very common in like, well, anything that's red, but like Skittles or Fruit Loops or Fruity Pebbles, or there's lots of different things, especially anything that's got coloring in it usually has red 40, yellow 30. And those are things I look for immediately on the package. Well, red 40 is linked to a ton of ADHD development in kids, attention, mood, anything related to that. Also, anger. A lot of times, I actually specifically have a family member who struggles with that. And since he's removed red 40 out of his diet, his mood has 100% changed. So a lot of it is linked to just different things. And again, that's just one example. There is plenty of things out there. So I encourage you to do your research. Don't be afraid to do that. But I highly encourage you to label read, because that's usually where it starts, is just being educated, because nobody's teaching that.
It's funny because we're told none of this.
Yeah.
A lot of the times. And you said some people, wave their hands, say, come on, let's be healthy. You also, and you talked about it, you have to be careful of who is telling you, come on, let's be healthy.
Exactly.
Because if it's maybe a mainstream market telling you, come on, let's be healthy, that's maybe a hand you don't want to hold. So you have to look past maybe the intentions or the true care behind these companies. I'm not singling anything out, but it's true. I mean, it's very, very true. Everything that's promoted for us to eat, hardly any of it seems to be good for us. So yeah, nutrition's huge. What we eat, we're hardly aware of any of it and the negative effects. And even if you're not somebody to the extent where you're eating it all the time, and maybe you get ADHD, you said red 40 is linked to that. Maybe you're not somebody who eats that constantly, and I'm kind of one of these people who eats it most of the time, but it's not like a bad habit, even though it is. But I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very good point is that you mentioned, because like there's a saying that me and my family always say is like, oh, 80-20, 80-20. Like, I eat, for the most part, extremely, like I eat my fruits, vegetables, like things like that are very like, I always tell people I don't shop the inside aisles of Walmart, because that's where a lot of that processed food sits. I haven't eaten potato chips in like 3 months or whatever, but it's that 80-20 lifestyle of realizing, okay, like I can, have, eat healthy at home, or like when I always tell myself if I go out with friends, like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to eat gluten, or I'm going to allow myself to eat pasta, just so that I can still enjoy that, but I'm not eating it constantly, because you're right, there is a balance and you can't completely avoid it.
Yeah, and what I was going to finish by saying is, even if you're not one of the people who like it affects on like an extreme level,
Yeah.
you'll still notice a difference if you're one of those 80-20 people. If you cut it to 90-10 or 100-0 in terms of what you eat, you'll still notice a difference. Even if it's not bringing up things like ADHD, or even if it's not bringing up things like extreme panic attacks to that extent, if you're eating these things, you'll still notice a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Because all of your body processes are going to be functioning so much better, because your body's going to be taking in food that it enjoys, that it needs, that was designed for your body. A great example of that's my dad and my mom. Like, my mom has allergies to gluten and dairy, and she cut that out of her diet because she had to. But my dad has done the same thing, and I've done the same thing as well. But it's just something that he saw a huge change from. So I think you're exactly right. Like, you might not be affected by, ADHD, by all of these attention. You might not even have anxiety. But there's just so many different things that you'll see. I mean, you could even see you sleep better, or an energy boost. Just little things like that that come from eating healthy. So yeah, it is a huge, huge, huge benefit.
So nutrition is vitally important. So be sure and pay attention to all that and what you're eating, and maybe what not to eat as well. So we're going to dive into a couple other things that have to do with the physical health and ties to mental health here after this break.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of You vs. Mind. If you have questions or comments of any sort, please feel free to email me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Vitamins. Vitamins is another thing. You talk about consuming certain foods that can help, or eliminating foods, but consuming vitamins helps a lot too. And CBD oil is something as well that I'd like for you to touch on
here when I hand it over to you. But vitamins. I was never a religious vitamins taker. But for this is my third week of actually taking vitamins every single day. Vitamin C, vitamin D3, a probiotic, which is gut health is huge for mental health. You touched on that earlier. I take zinc for like immune health. I even take a couple Flintstone gummies. And I've noticed a difference. Like, I used to be tired all the time. Like, I could literally go to bed at any point in the day. I was just so tired because I wasn't sleeping. I was eating junk all day long. And I started taking my vitamins, and I noticed a difference. So talk about vitamins and CBD a little bit, what it is.
Yeah, so with vitamins, like especially right now, I mean, you see vitamins everywhere. I mean, you can go to Walmart and there's just shelves and shelves and shelves, and it can be kind of overwhelming. I mean, especially for me, working at a pharmacy, like I would have people come in and they'd be like, "What do I need?" Like, I don't know. I know I need vitamins. What do I need? And so it was just the concept of going, okay, here, start with these four. And so like, if you're looking to improve your mood or improve just your general immunity, I would start by taking vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin zinc, and then there's another vitamin called quercetin, which is connected to heart health and but kind of the whole cardiovascular system. Vitamin C is just a good thing to take overall just for immune health. Vitamin D is going to help with energy. For me, I struggled with breaking my bones a lot as a kid. And there was like probably a 7 to 8 year time span where I had a broken bone at least once a year. It was terrible. And something that I realized, and I was the same way as you were, like I was tired all the time. I was really sluggish. I just didn't know what was going on. And so eventually we did some blood work, found out it was a vitamin D deficiency. And as soon as I started taking that, I was extremely low on that scale, but my energy improved dramatically. I was sleeping better. I haven't had any broken bones since, which again is another, not really related to mental health, but it was just another physical thing that I saw happen. But my alertness, I was much more alert. It was just overall a beneficial thing for me. But taking that vitamin D and that zinc together is going to help your body absorb it the best way possible. And so that's just something that's extremely important. But yeah, taking those four to start out is a good kind of starting point because again, it can be very overwhelming. But to take those four, you're gonna see a huge mood booster, and especially for your mind. That's something that is going to be a good benefit as well because again, a lot of the mind health sticks with alertness, and if you're more alert, then your brain is going to start making connections, making pathways, so that you can start to process through things like anxiety, stressful situations, because if you're not alert, if you're not mentally ready to handle what the day throws at you, that is just going to throw you
You
off.
have no offense.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have no way to combat that. And so even before you start to battle anxiety, or even if you try to start overcoming it, you need to have your mind and body in a place that's ready for it, because it is so important to have that. And so again, glad that your counselor pointed that out to you, because it's a good starting point. And same with CBD oil. With CBD oil, a lot of times people are like, oh, it's marijuana, like, oh my goodness, like, especially for people that are not supportive of that. And again, that's something that, again, wherever you stand on that, that's your choice. But with the CBD oil, there's two parts of the marijuana plant. There's the side that has the THC, which is where you get the high and the hallucinations and that kind of stuff. But then there's also the other plant part of it that is really, really good for regulating anxiety and kind of regulating those kind of receptors in the body. And so for me, like I started taking it a couple years ago to help me sleep because I wasn't sleeping well, and I noticed that it did calm me down. I wasn't necessarily needing it for, because I was super anxious or super hyper, but like it calmed me down. It helped me sleep really well. And so that's something that I would really recommend too, if you're having trouble with that, because again, if you can't get your brain to shut off at night, it's just going to wander. It's just going to make, especially for people that struggle with sleeping and having those anxieties at night, it makes that so much harder. So if you can find, and maybe it's not CBD, maybe there's another supplement out there called melatonin. That's another really good natural supplement that's going to help shut your brain off and get you to get good sleep, because your body does so much regenerating of cells, of just kind of processing your whole day. It does that when it goes through its sleep cycle, and if you're not getting that sleep, that's a huge, again, you wake up the next day and you're not ready to face it because your body has not regenerated, not recharged enough to be able to prepare you for what's ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that you talked about sleep because all that's great. We're going to get into some of the physical traits as sleeping and exercising and organization and just different things that you can implement into your life as far as maybe like actual physical activities goes rather than just health. So we'll get into that here in just a second. So we might as well start with sleep because you just touched on sleep. And there's a big difference between, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I sleep all the time. I sleep enough." Well, one, that can be a problem. Sleeping too much can be a huge issue.
Yeah.
I fall victim to that sometimes myself. But even sleeping the right amount of time, but in the wrong time frame, can not be beneficial as well. So 8 hours is around what you want. Sleeping 8 hours from 1 o'clock in the morning to 9 is much worse than sleeping 8 hours from 10 to 6. It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a huge, like, I don't know, sleep is something that people really aren't aware of in terms of, like, it affecting themselves. And like, so I'm telling you, like, if you can sleep those 8 hours from 10, and I don't know, maybe 9 hours, get up at 7, sleep from 10 to 7 or 11 to 7, that is so much better. And if you take your vitamins and you eat right, just, I'm telling you, you can go through all of the anxiety strategies that you want, and they may help. But if you can do these things, you'll get such a bigger head start on anxiety and really separate yourself from, like, you just feel so much better.
Yeah,
And
no,
sleep is one of the best places to start.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right because, and again, it's all about the circadian rhythm in the body and how, which the circadian rhythm is essentially your body's natural tendency to know, the sun is up, I need to be up, the sun is down, I need to be down. And with the boom of technology and, lights and different things, it makes, sleeping a lot more difficult, and especially like if you're working odd hours or things like that, that can be effective. But you're exactly right. You need to sleep at least 8 hours, and if you can get more, that's great. But you're exactly right because you can go to as much counseling as you need to, but if you cannot physically get your body to the point
Yeah.
that it's ready to be receptive of those trainings and of
Well
those
said.
counseling sessions, then your body's not going to know what to do with it because it's scientifically and physiologically, it's not ready to receive any of that. And so if you can't I would say this is essentially the starting point for beating your anxiety. Like if you're like,
I
okay,
agree.
where do I need to start? Start with the 4 vitamins we mentioned earlier: C, zinc, D, and the quercetin. If you
And another one is omega-3 fatty acids is something I forgot to mention, but it can have a big impact. Omega-3 fatty acids, like, is a supplement that produces fats that your body can't produce itself.
Yep.
And so it provides you, and it's known to, like, help overcome addiction and just kind of, I don't know, get your brain back on track. So omega-3 fatty acids is something too, but go ahead.
Which is, and you're totally good on that. And finding those supplements, and again, it could also be one of those things where you go get a blood test done and you see what your body is low in. Because, like, while I'm really low in vitamin D, somebody else might not be, or they might need, something else. And so it's good. Again, also talking with these vitamins, like, look for foods that have that. Avocados, I have 2 sitting over on my counter right now. Those are so high in omega-3s. And so you want to look for those foods that have that in there as well, because that supports your body's natural supplements, but it also supports the vitamins you're taking. But you're exactly right. You need to just focus on getting your body to the place where it's ready to receive the counseling or the anxiety strategies that you want to implement. And so gaining sleep and getting your eating right and getting those vitamins is a huge step towards doing that.
And exercise is huge too because I mean, exercise, I don't know, it doesn't seem like really anybody does it anymore, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. Okay, don't go to the gym. Like, if you like playing basketball, go play basketball. Walk to class instead of driving the 2 blocks. I mean, like, do that. I mean, just 20 to 30 minutes a day. Just exercise. I'm sure you'll probably get in better physical condition while doing this, but we're not talking about exercise to help you win strongest man in America.
Yeah.
We're talking about exercise to help your mind get right.
Yeah.
And that's a far different path than trying to exercise to become stronger. We're trying to become mentally stronger.
Yeah, and I think that that's something a lot of people can get scared when they hear the word exercise, because they think, oh, I have to work out every single day for an hour. Oh, I have to, do all these different things. But you don't, because health is 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. And so you're right. Like whether you're playing basketball for an hour, like work out 3 times a week minimum, maybe. I mean, if you want to work out more, that's great. But if it's even less than that, that's okay too. Because a lot of times people get scared by the word exercise and they think they have to do this huge workout program. And like you're right, like they're gonna have to run a marathon or do all this stuff. They don't have to do that. It's simply like I always stretch about 15 minutes every morning after I wake up just to get my mind going and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm not necessarily running a ton or doing a lot of lifting weights and stuff. And so just doing the little things like that helps so much in getting to the processes that you want to do. So even just starting small will help lead to big change.
And something that has that same like start small leading to a big change is organization, because so many people are like, quote unquote, overwhelmed by their daily task or something. Well, I think that being organized with those tasks can help reduce that overwhelmed feeling, which then leads to many more positive outcomes. So like being organized is big too. Have a planner, write down your task, put a sticky note on your bathroom mirror, whatever. And I think that would help a lot too, is like staying organized with all the stuff that you're worried about rather than just going into it arms flailing and not knowing what's happening. So and another one is, get your right sleep and wake up and be organized, but don't wake up. And screen time is something else too. People are on their phone 7 hours a day. That's just berserk. That's unbelievable. Like that's big too, screen time, because how often do we get anxiety by looking at crap on our phone? So wake up and don't grab your phone. That's the first thing everyone grabs. Grab your Bible, read that. Grab your journal, read a magazine article. Like, just don't grab your phone and start scrolling. That's not a good, effective, healthy way to start your day. Put it on the other side of your room, or put it by your door, and like make that, I don't know, your reward to starting the day right, and grab it as you walk out your door. So like start your day right. Be organized, be on top of things, stay planned, exercise, pray, do all these things, and then kind of, because if you start hectic, your whole day is going to be hectic. If you start right, hectic moments can still come, but you can handle them right because you started without them. So those are different things that are, I don't know, people just don't think of. But they're super important things that you can input into your daily life and see a huge outcome. One last thing we're going to talk about here after this break, I think you'll find very interesting.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of You vs. Mind. If you have questions or comments of any sort, please feel free to email me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
So one last thing, Isabelle, just to kind of recap, we've covered why it is important to be healthy physically and actively, and how it connects to your mental health. Talked about nutrition, how there's hidden sugars. I don't know if we touched on this, but avoid caffeine, pop, carbonated drinks. Look at the hidden ingredients. So nutrition, those different things. Vitamins, CBD oil, supplements, how they can also add to this. Sleep, exercise, organization, all so vital. Make your bed to start your day. That's huge too. I meant to mention that. If you make your bed every day, it just kind of gives your mind that first feeling of accomplishment.
Yep.
And that's a big way to start your day. But we're going to round it out. The last thing I want to talk about kind of goes hand in hand with the nutrition in terms of the masses aren't aware. But low-tox living is what you call it, Isabelle. Explain to us what low-tox living means. Take the stage.
No, you're good. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm living non-toxic, or, oh,
what is toxic living?
So toxic, well, essentially, so in the body, because what I like to talk about when I say like, oh, this is the reason I'm eating healthier, this is the reason I'm doing certain things, is because our bodies carry a toxic load. Anytime we come in contact with something that is like our phones emit energy, or the lights are emitting energy, the microwave emits energy, different things in our plastics have chemicals into it. Anytime you come in contact with that, your body is absorbing it. I mean, your skin is porous, so anything that touches your skin is getting absorbed into it. There's just all kinds of different ways that your body can come in contact with toxicity.
And microwaves are terrible.
Yes.
Radiation.
Uh-huh. And so all of those things get absorbed into the body, whether it's through food we eat, things we put on our body, whether that's lotion, makeup, perfume.
Shampoo, body
Yep.
wash.
Anything like that. And so people.
Candles.
Yes, definitely candles. And so there's so many different things that we don't even realize half the time. And that's what, kind of back to what you were saying, a lot of people don't even know this. I was talking to my friends the other day. They were like, "Well, you smell really good." I said, "Thanks. I haven't used perfume in over 2 months." And they were like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah, everything I own is fragrance free. And here's why." And they could not believe it. And so that's the thing is, whenever I say low tox living, like I will never get away, especially in this day and age, I will never completely get away from being like living around something that's toxic. And that's just, so whenever people say, "Oh, here's, ways to become non-toxic in your living and stuff," like that's great in theory, but you'll never completely get away from it. And so you just have to realize like, okay, like don't get overwhelmed by everything that we're telling you. Because a lot of times people, when I say, "Yeah, I've changed this, I've done this, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I have to go home and throw everything away and start all over." Like, no, it's a process. It takes time. Like it took me several months to find substitutes for my shampoo, conditioner, different things like that. But I got to the point where once I had that figured out, it was just like, okay, now I know what to buy again, or now I know, what to eat. And so don't get frustrated with that, because it shouldn't be something that is frustrating. Because if it is, then that's not fun for you. That's not fun for the process. Like enjoy looking for ways that's going to make your body feel better. I mean, I think that's why I care about health so much, and why I've seen a huge, like, once I started to see the change in my life, like that's the reason that I started telling other people about it, telling you about it. Like there's different things like, for example, when I did change, like I changed my laundry detergent to a fragrance-free, hypoallergenic. I think it only has like 9 ingredients in it, but I changed it because I noticed my skin was itching. Well, I had no idea like the chemicals that were in my other laundry detergent, but as soon as I switched to using it, my skin has felt 10 times better. I'm just happier. Like there's just so much, like I said, there's more energy. I'm sleeping better. Like it's almost like I said, "Oh, this is like how it's supposed to work. Like this is how my body is supposed to feel." And I just have so much more joy in doing, like making those little switches and doing things like that. And so like that's what I want to encourage you listeners with today is like, don't be frustrated. Like if you don't know where to start, I say start with things as little as like go through your house and see like what has, especially like your body washes and your shampoos, like see what has sulfates in it, see what has
Toothpaste and fluoride.
Yeah, see what has fluoride in it. See what has fragrance in it. Anything like that, or even something as simple like I would say go switch and buy a fluoride-free toothpaste, and I would also say switch your deodorant to fragrance and aluminum-free. And see it, like just start with those 2 things and work from there. And then see about minimizing how much plastic comes into your home. I mean, think about you as the gatekeeper of your home. What you listen, what you watch, what you bring into your home, all of that is controlled by you. And if you can control what's coming into your home, like you can't necessarily always control what's going to happen outside in the world, but you can control what comes into your home. And so be mindful of that. Make those small decisions that lead to bigger changes. Like you mentioned, microwaves are extremely bad. The radiation they emit into the food and different things, like we really shouldn't use microwaves, but they're very convenient. They're very easy, like accessible. They're great to, cook a quick dinner or anything. And especially, I mean, we're both college students, especially in today's day and age of convenience and having things ready fast. Like we don't always have time to cook meals, so they're convenient for us to use. So I don't think I'll ever stop using one for that fact. Again, do I know they're bad? Yes. But I'm going to make a change somewhere else to compensate for that. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to reduce my toxic load on my body. And so that's really essentially what low tox living is about, is just, being mindful of knowing, yes, I can't get rid of everything, but I can make small changes that are going to help my body and mind, benefit from that.
Well said. I mean, like I said, this is why I have you on, Isabelle. Thank you for joining me. I mean,
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
The amount of stuff that you know about all of this just blows my mind, and in a good way. It blows my mind in a good way because, it's so impactful, and no one's aware of hardly any of this. So I hope that anybody listening perked up maybe a few times during this and went, oh, maybe I need to start doing this or stop doing this or eat this and not that. But start with even a couple of these things. If everything we talked about is too overwhelming, break it down. Start with a couple, but we highly encourage you at some point to try to do all of this. Sleep well, eat your vitamins, exercise, be organized, pay attention to what you're eating, drink water, and, the episode or the title of this podcast is You versus Mind. And while it feels like that a lot of the times, it's you versus mind, and then once you win, it's you with mind. So you don't want to make it, such as, oh, it's me against my mind. Your mind's always going to be a part of you. So you have to fight your mind, defeat it, and then take it with you in a positive manner and in a newly baptized, if you will, state of mind. No pun intended. So I think that's a good way to look at it. So kind of make it a competition. Take back what is yours. I say that a few times on this. Take back your mind. It's gotten away from you, and then go hand in hand with it ahead. So Isabelle, thank you so much for joining me. All this was great. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And like you said it very well, just little things for big change, and doing those foundational things is going to lead to a huge impact. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and I hope that the listeners take some of this and run with it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you everybody for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever time it is, and God bless.
Thank you for joining me for this edition of You versus Mind. My hope is that you are now more prepared to take on your mind when it attacks than you were at the beginning of the podcast. Podcasts on this show are weekly, so be sure and tune in next week for additional weapons to add to your mental arsenal. You can find You versus Mind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I would love to talk to you and answer any questions you may have, or just have a conversation. Again, you can reach out to me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and God bless.